This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I am your host, Miles Taylor, and before I say anything, let me urge you to join the Defiance in this country, the group of people pushing back against corruption and abuses of power. If you haven't checked it out, head over to defiance.org. You can sign up for free for updates on what the Club for the Courageous is doing to protect our democracy, or you can become a member and you can support some of the things that we are going to talk about today that we are doing to fight back. But first and foremost here, we got to understand what's happening in this country if we're going to do things to push back against the corruption and fight those abuses of power. And today on Defiance Daily, we got a big one. There is a whopper, because if you didn't see the news we sent out this morning, it appears that the president of the United States is trending towards the creation of a multi-billion-dollar slush fund in order to reward his allies who've been investigated by the federal government, including potentially paying his own family-associated entities for the trouble they suffered after they committed crimes and were investigated during the Biden administration. We're going to talk to you about that, but we're also going to talk about another area where taxpayer spending is being subject to the whims of the Trump administration, and that is the $1.5 trillion that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is asking taxpayers for, and the way he's doing that. With us today, we'll have former Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr with us to talk about that issue. And then it's Friday, and on Friday, we talk about the MAGA losses of the week and the things that have happened inside the president's movement that perhaps haven't been the we're always winning sort of actions that they want to tout. And then finally today, because it's Friday, we will award the Donald J. Trump Sole-Mate Award, S-O-L-E, because we award someone every single week a pair of the Florsheim shoes that Donald Trump gives out to his most loyal devotees, the people willing to do things that more scrupulous types would say no to, in some cases because they don't want to go to prison. So we'll tell you this week who the winner is of the Sole-Mate Award. And also towards the end of the program, we have with us the incredible Latosha Brown to talk about Voting Rights Day of Action. All roads lead to the South, and what they have planned and how you can participate. It's a packed program, so we're going to jump in today, and we're going to start with the slush fund. And I want to bring into this conversation my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz. Xander, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier today on a coffee. But if folks didn't join us for coffee mid-afternoon, then I want to bring them in. And it's where we started the morning, because I was so enraged when I saw this story. Dumbfounded.
You were pissed.
All of the emotions, all of the
fired
emotions
up this morning.
that I woke up my wife just to tell her about it. And I got in trouble because Hannah said, why would you start the day this way? I mean, you're just bringing cortisol into the room. But this is such a, it's such a catastrophic story, because apparently we're now debating whether taxpayers should compensate January 6th rioters. Okay, I wish I were joking, Xander, but it was bad enough that the president wanted to pardon them, but now he wants to put together a multi-billion-dollar fund to turn them into millionaires for, again, the challenges they suffered in the wake of committing their crimes. ABC News broke the story. Take a look.
This morning, a potentially unprecedented settlement between President Trump and the government he runs. Sources tell ABC News the president is expected to drop his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS in exchange for potential financial compensation for allies that claim they were wrongfully targeted by the Biden administration. The deal, which sources caution is not finalized, would use taxpayer dollars to establish a $1.7 billion fund used to settle claims brought by anyone who alleges they were harmed by the Biden administration's so-called weaponization of the legal system. Sources say one group that would be eligible to tap into that are the nearly 1,600 people charged after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. This comes as President Trump is suing the Treasury Department and the IRS for $10 billion in damages over the leak of his tax returns during his first term in office. And after sources told ABC News he was pressing his Justice Department to pay roughly $230 million for the investigations he faced during the Biden administration.
It's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right?
And, that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself.
According to sources, the commission that would oversee the fund would have total authority on who they hand the money out to, which could amount to an unparalleled use of taxpayer dollars with little oversight. Sources say the president would have the authority to remove members of the commission without cause, and that the commission would not be required to disclose how it runs or its decision-making process. The proposed fund, which could face legal hurdles, would draw its money from a Treasury Department judgment fund, a permanent bucket of federal dollars used to pay court judgments and settlements, sources said. The settlement terms are expected to bar the president from directly receiving payments related to the claims of his lawsuits, but it does not explicitly prohibit entities associated with him from doing so.
There you have it, Xander. Not a great story. I mean, ABC couldn't even cover that as this is just another thing a president does.
Yeah. When he said, when Trump says it's interesting, he means it's a clear conflict of interest, right? It's when he says it's interesting that I preside over the decision about how much to pay me. He means it's a conflict of interest that should never happen. It should never be the case. It seems like
it's like you're the guy going to the ATM machine, and you're the one that controls the ATM machine. But the money comes from other people.
Nice setup. Nice little gig you have here. Seems like January 6th, you get pardoned, which is nice. You get a job in ICE for many of them. That's kind of nice.
DOJ.
Or DOJ. You get some job with the federal government that you're underqualified for. And now you also may get a Ferrari or some other nice gift from the president for staying loyal to him. What a signal this sends to anyone else who, may have extremist thoughts, but worry about eventual accountability. What a signal to that kind of army of the most extreme MAGA supporters out there.
It's an extraordinary story arc. I mean, every single Republican in Congress in the hours after the attack pretended they were aghast, or said it was a domestic terrorist attack, or said Donald Trump had to go, this was unacceptable. And look at the story arc. Now they've been brainwashed by him to say, let's go along with giving these people potentially millions of dollars. And not just them, as you heard in that report, anyone who can claim weaponization from the Biden administration, give me a freaking break. This is Donald Trump's grievance fund, and it represents potentially the biggest single heist in American history, literally in dollars and in sheer audaciousness. $1.7 billion that gets to be handed out from the federal government with no accountability, no oversight. They don't have to report who it went to or how much. Listen, folks, let me tell you, this isn't how government works. If I'd proposed something like this, just the idea could have potentially got me put into prison, depending on how far I would have taken it in government. This is truly remarkable. You will not hear the end of it. And I suspect you will see this as one of the first counts in an impeachment of Donald Trump. I don't say that lightly, but of all of the brazen things that have been done, this is going to rank among the top acts of corruption that Democrats, if they retake the House, will list if they file articles. You can be pretty sure of that.
I think you mentioned something important there, which is the fact that there are people going along with this. It's not just Trump being Trump, which we can anticipate. It's that the rest of our system is refusing to do their job to hold this guy back, no matter what red line he crosses. And I know we say this a lot here, but if you weren't already emboldened to organize around the midterms and make sure that we have a Congress that holds this president in check, maybe this will get more people to the front line, knowing that literally the folks in Washington are taking your money and giving it to folks who tried to overthrow the government and hang the vice president.
Well, maybe it will. And I hope this addendum to the story will get folks to understand how extraordinary this is, because the Los Angeles Times just dropped a report looking at what happened after Donald Trump pardoned many of those January 6th defendants who will now be eligible for a $1.7 billion grievance fund. As you may have guessed, these cases are horrifying. So let me put a trigger warning out there right now. Some of them are truly disgusting. One pardoned January 6th rioter was later sentenced to life in prison for molesting 2 children. Again, someone Donald Trump pardoned. Prosecutors say he even referenced expected January 6th compensation money while trying to pressure a victim into silence. Okay, so these guys, Xander, thought they were going to get money from Donald Trump. They knew. And they were even using that apparently to advance crimes including the molestation of children. Another just reached a plea deal involving allegations of sexual exploitation of a minor for the purpose of producing a, quote, visual depiction of the conduct. The victim was under the age of 12. Another was recently sentenced after investigators found more than 100,000 child sexual abuse images and videos. Other notable convictions in the article cite a man who threatened to kill House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, threatened to assassinate the top Democrat in Congress. Another who was convicted of grand larceny after breaking into a Virginia home and stealing electronics and jewelry. Another arrested after allegedly putting a gun on someone in a church parking lot following his January 6th pardon. And yet another accused of threatening to blow up a federal building before showing up near President Obama's neighborhood armed with weapons. So yeah, there you go, Xander. This is a really good group of people. Not only should we be pardoning them, I guess we should be giving them our hard-earned taxpayer dollars for their public service out there, being predators towards children and threatening to assassinate top Democrats. I mean, this is just breathtaking to me that we're even having this conversation.
Look, obviously, you know me. I'm a champion of social justice. I think mass incarceration is a stain on society, but we've got to talk about these aren't people that were being crushed by poverty and forced to make hard choices to make ends meet. These are people who opted into traveling, most of them traveling to the nation's capital. Were online organizing to commit a crime. There was a conspiracy element to this. And so that's a certain type, that's a little bit different than the kind of like the crushing of poverty that drives a lot of the crime in this country. There's a intentionality into what they're doing. And some of the other crimes we're seeing here also follow that pattern of intentionally being awful. I don't know if there's another way to put some of those crimes other than being absolutely awful. And it was he pardoned everyone on day one, right? This is like, it shows how careless this whole thing was. He didn't go case by case. He pardoned everyone. The ruling by Trump at the end of the day is if you're with him, you're a good guy. If you're against him, you're a bad guy. And that's the only thing that matters. Loyalty is the only thing that matters. And good guys shouldn't be punished. They should go free and they should get money.
Well, in the vein of corruption, Xander, I will say this. We are not going to let these things slide. We're not just an organization that reports on stories related to corruption and abuses of power. Like I said at the top, we do something about it. And you and I were talking earlier today, kicking around some initial ideas about how we might ensure that there is transparency so that we can track or try to fund the organizations that track and identify who receives this money, what they do with that money, and how we can hold accountable the federal government. And there are going to be options here. I already messaged some of our friends today, nonprofit pro-democracy leaders who've brought many lawsuits against the Trump administration to see if they're looking into how to preemptively sue to stop this slush fund from being brought into existence, and ways we might be able to hold the administration's feet to the fire through Congress. So make no mistake, folks, you've not heard the end of this one. Miles is pissed off, and we're going to make sure that defiance.org is involved in the remedy. So there we are with that one, Xander. But we've got something else to talk about, because taxpayer money doesn't just get put into Donald Trump's slush funds. It's being used in all kinds of other ways, including a quite remarkable defense budget that's been proposed. And with us to talk about that is someone who knows the Pentagon inside and out. From well before they started kicking reporters out of the Pentagon, we have the extraordinary former CNN Pentagon correspondent and national security analyst, Barbara Starr, with us. Barbara, it's great to see you. It's great to have you back.
Good to see you both.
All right.
Thank you for tolerating in the green room my soapbox moment on the $1.7 billion. I'm having a real hard time getting over that one today, and a hard time justifying it.
Well, I think it's always very important to tell the American people where their hard-earned, tax dollars are going. I want to know where my tax dollars are going. And I have to say, some of what you talked about was a big surprise to me, just as a plain old American citizen.
Well, I cannot imagine in government having been on the receiving end of that. This isn't about politics. It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's just about transparency. And if that had shown up on my desk, I would have taken 3 steps backwards and said, call the lawyers. I feel like you're trying to get me into prison. But we'll talk about that later, because Barbara, we got a lot to talk about today, including the Strait of Hormuz and what's happening there. But before we get into that, there appears to be an increasingly expanding mission in the region. And I have to ask you about something we watched from Pete Hegseth today, because I genuinely felt like when we saw this, that I was watching some sort of dystopian Schoolhouse Rock sort of thing. Is we had the defense secretary put out this bizarre animated, presumably AI animated video trying to sell Americans on a very, very, very big uptick in the budget for the Department of Defense. And the way he framed it was especially interesting. Take a look at this and we'll talk about it on the back end.
What you might hear in the media, America is not in decline. We remain the strongest military power on earth, but that power requires renewal. And with global threats that are constantly evolving, it's time to make a $1.5 trillion investment, a generational down payment.
Just a down payment, Barbara. Tell me what's your reaction to that. Look, you've covered Pentagon budgets. I am a defense hawk. Like, I'm going to make no bones about it. Xander here is a total dove. Xander would give up all defense and he would just say we should defend America with feathers and tongue depressors and stick glue. I probably
sandwiches, leafleting sandwiches everywhere.
That's right. I would go probably too far the other direction. But even for me, 1.5 trillion sounds like kind of a big down payment.
And it's more than that, because, of course, they have to pay for the war in Iran, with Iran, which they don't yet know how much that's going to cost them. I mean, remember, no defense budget actually ever includes the full cost of, you both know this,
right,
of current ongoing military operations. So it's more money than that. And we are already this week seeing the head of the Army and the chief of naval operations talk about they might have to cut their training programs because they may not have enough money for training if Congress and the Pentagon can't agree on a supplemental funding bill and agree very soon. So let me point a couple of things out. Cutting training. Didn't Pete Hegseth promise all of us that he had, and the president, they had rebuilt the U.S. military? Well, maybe not. You know, it might be fraying around the edges if they don't pay a little more attention to what they're actually doing. And you're going to get me on my soapbox. 1.5 trillion. How do you efficiently spend that much money? Because the rate of change, of technological change these days, is going to outpace any weapons funding program you can come up with. You have got to be flexible. They say they're flexible. I doubt they're as flexible as they need to be, but you can't spend it in an efficient manner, not with the rate of change these days in military technology.
Well, and the fact that, Barbara, they portrayed it as a down payment, as if somebody's financing a used Honda Civic. This is just the first payment. There's more payments to come. I mean, that's what's really remarkable about it. And I take your point about spending money. I mean, I don't even think folks realize this. Congress every year will take what's called rescissions. They will take money back because agencies can't even spend it all. And I've been on both sides of this equation. I've been on the Appropriations Committee taking those rescissions away, and I've been on the government side where our people came to us ahead of the expiration of our dollars and said, we got another 100 million over here that the department hasn't been able to spend. My inclination was not, as Pete Hegseth's was, let's go spend it on crabs and iPhones and as many things as we can buy. Typically, if you can't spend it on a good thing, you let the committees take the rescission. So I do want to ask you, Barbara, and sorry, Xander, let me throw the mic to you as well.
That's okay.
Is just, do you think this goes through? This is a historic defense budget. What is the scuttlebutt on Capitol Hill? Is this going to face big headwinds, especially from fiscal conservatives in the president's own party who are worried he's spending us to death?
I don't think it's an absolutely done deal, but it's going to be hard to vote against what the administration claims is necessary funding. And I don't think the message from Pete Hegseth is the one that will potentially convince congressional Republicans. I mean, that little cartoon was kind of ridiculous. I don't know what else.
You don't think that'll do it? That didn't persuade you?
We're getting lapped by Iran on the cartoons.
You have to wonder what the Russian and Chinese leadership make of it when they watch all this stuff.
I know.
But, what may convince them is just that if they feel that there is still a need to be able to counter in Asia and in Europe. But the administration right now doesn't appear to place either of those front and center. Trump has come back from China saying everything's cool, basically, and he's taking troops out of Europe. So it's really hard to see where this all goes now.
Barbara, as Miles mentioned, I'm a dove. I'm okay admitting that. I haven't liked any of our cover stories for any of our conflicts really since World War II. But this feels unique in that I don't even really know what our cover story is for this conflict. Does it feel unique to, in some ways, it's harder to hold them accountable to if they're accomplishing the goals of the mission, because they were almost flippantly gave us some goals and have changed the goals as these weeks have rolled on here. Does kind of the lack of clarity around the mission here feel especially unique to you?
Well, and Xander, sorry, Barbara, to interrupt you, because there's one thing I want to play before you answer that, because we had an example of that. We had an example of that today. Actually, sorry, it was last week, I think, with Marco Rubio. Republican leaders seemed to be drawing a distinction, as you noted, Xander, between Operation Epic Fury and what they now describe as a separate mission involving the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Take a listen to what Speaker Johnson had to say about this, and then let's talk about it on the back end.
Defeated and Iran warmed powers resolution, but there were 2 new Republicans that voted for it. Are you confident that you can keep beating back these types of resolutions?
Yes, look, Iran is we're not having kinetic activity right now, as we would say. The president has declared Operation Epic Fury to have concluded, and now we're working on the next project, which is getting the Strait of Hormuz open. We don't expect that to be a warfare activity, so to speak. So we've got to allow the administration time to negotiate these things. The president has been doing that in earnest. The difficulty, as they've articulated in the White House, is that you got to make sure you're negotiating with the right parties, and it's taken Iran some time because the top layers of leadership were taken out to make sure the right people with the right authority are at the table. So that's been the complicating factor. I do know that our allies and our neighbors and friends around the world, and most recently in the discussion the president had with Xi in China just in the last couple of days, everyone has an interest in the strait being reopened for commerce. And so you're going to have, I think, international partners who assist with that. We think it comes to a conclusion soon. And I don't think Congress needs to get in the way of the administration as they finish what is now a negotiation instead of a military conflict. That's the way we see it. So we'll see how that goes. Yep.
So, Barbara, military conflict's over, even though both sides continue at various points to exchange fire. What do we make of this? The shifting goals, the shifting priorities. Where do we sit?
Can I just say, to hear him say the words, warfare activity, that's a new one on me. I don't know what that actually means.
It's not a war, it's just warfare activity.
It's adjacent. It's like
you
the
don't
Diet
have cancer,
Coke of warfare.
You just have cancer activity in your body.
I think, people always used to talk about, well, there's indirect artillery fire. It's not that big a deal. Well, it's a big deal when it's coming at you. So, pardon, war is war, combat is combat, and troops must be given everything they can to succeed in this mission. And that remains the fundamental problem with all of this, and why there's such deep-seated concern at the Pentagon. You can talk about a negotiated settlement agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. You can talk about the fact that indeed the U.S. military decimated much, if not the majority, of Iran's military capability, but Iran still has the capability to launch attacks against shipping in the Gulf. It is not safe. That card remains in their hands, and they will decide when, how, and where, and if they want to use it. So, the U.S. may have achieved a so-called tactical victory, but Iran still has cards to play here, and it's hard to see them just saying, oh, well, never mind. We're never going to attack shipping again. It's all good. Just send all your ships through. I think that's very unlikely.
I think
Call me.
being an American, I am used to there being a military budget. I don't understand. And military activity, I don't understand at all times in general. And then you have things like this. And I'm wondering, Barbara, in your history reporting on all the different conflicts you report on, are there times where there's been movements that connected the cost of war to the impact of an everyday American effectively? Should we be replicating anything as a resistance movement? Should we be replicating anything you've seen in the past that's good at creating that connection and having Americans attribute either pain they're feeling at the pump or anger they're feeling about their tax dollars being spent in a more effective way than what you're seeing today?
Well, I have to answer that, like I said, as a plain old tax-paying American citizen.
Yeah.
Which we all are, or a person who food, gas, utility bills, everything is up. I think the most compelling thing that Americans understand, how much more are you paying every week, every month for food and gasoline for your car? How much more are truckers paying and railroads paying to ship goods across the United States to get them to you so you can go to Target or Costco or Walmart or your corner store if you live in a small town without that?
Yeah.
Buy what you need. I think those are the things that Americans understand, because the administration, as all administrations are, the Pentagon, as all Pentagons are very skillful at saying, this is what our troops need to keep them safe. Well, then I come back to, yes, of course, strongest military the world has ever known, best equipped the military in the world. But what about AI? What about the pace of technological change? I think a lot of Americans don't even know that right now, the U.S. Army is complimenting, lauding the Ukrainians for their military successes on the battlefield and trying to learn from them. They have sent troops to Ukraine to try and learn some of the lessons from Ukrainian forces on how they're engaging in command and control on the battlefield and drone warfare, which they excel at. And remember, it was just months ago, the president was literally yelling at Zelensky in the Oval Office, "You have no cards to play." Well, Zelensky's stealing the deck right now. Very efficient.
That's right. Barbara, I've got one final question for you, which is that on the way back from China, the president really seemed to undercut his own negotiations with the Iranians. He said that the goal of getting them to forfeit some of their fissile material, which they could use the fuel for nuclear weapons, was a public relations goal. He said this is basically for PR reasons. So he basically signaled to the Iranians, I don't actually need you guys to forfeit your nuclear capability. I need you to give me something so I can sell that story, so I can tell people I'm getting you to give up your nuclear capability. If you're the Iranians and you heard that, you already thought you had a lot of the cards. And now you realize, oh, okay, we just need to give him some sort of symbolic gesture that makes it look like we're getting rid of the ingredients for nuclear bombs. That seems to me to have been sort of the last capitulation of this administration and these negotiations. And I don't see how they have set the United States up to get any sort of deal that was better than the status quo right before the bombs started dropping. Give me your read.
Well, I have to agree. I mean, my flip remark off the top is after the Iranians stop laughing.
No kidding.
I mean, that's the problem these days, isn't it? All of these foreign governments that Trump is dealing with, whether it's the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, the Europeans right now with removing troops from Europe, canceling a deployment to Poland. Whether you're friend or foe, he seems to be engaging in each bilateral relationship with some kind of activity that undercuts what he thinks or says he thinks he wants to accomplish. And the problem is, you could say, oh, that's Trump. and we only have 2 more years one way or a couple of more years one way or the other. But the problem is some of this instability now, especially when you talk about Iran and what you're talking about, becomes institutionalized in the world order. You don't reverse it that fast. This is now what the region sees and how they react to it, and how will other countries perceive this as they pursue their own current nuclear weapons program. I think, North Korea, or some of the countries that are considering a nuclear weapons program. What do they make of it when Trump, says, "Oh, never mind"?
One of the best documentaries I've ever seen was The Fog of War with Robert McNamara. Have you seen this? It's an incredible documentary, but he's going through the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he says the reason they were able to eventually be successful in the Cuban Missile Crisis is they knew what Khrushchev would believe he could go back to his people as with a victory. And Castro, they knew what to sell Castro as, the story. They didn't say, this is the story that we need to feel good and go back to our people. It is like the Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry version of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's understanding who you're in conflict with and knowing how they can go back to the table and get a win so you accomplish the thing you want. But this is like the Twitter administration that just says all their goals out loud and what they're trying to do and rolls forth so everyone knows all the cards they're trying to play. It's incredible.
Not the A-team, not the A-team.
Not the A-team.
Barbara Starr, we're always very grateful for your analysis, and we would urge listeners and viewers, you can follow Barbara at barbarastarreports.substack.com. Barbara, is there other places we should send folks to cover your incisive national security analysis?
No, I think that'll about do it.
If you don't follow her on Substack, you're not welcome here anymore. She's got the hot takes, and please make sure to stick with her. And Barbara, we'd love to have you back. And next time we have you, I think we're going to say the conflict is over, gas prices are back to normal, and everything's okay. Just kidding. I highly doubt that.
We'll see. Anyhow, great seeing you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you, my friend.
You.
Appreciate
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Xander, it is Friday, which means we shift into talking about the MAGA losses of the week. Every week we cap off the week having this conversation. And, sometimes some bad things happen during the week, but some things have happened this week to maybe put these folks who are advocating for Trump's corrupt policies in a more humble place. And we start tonight with Vice President J.D. Vance, who's basically been on an unofficial speaking tour over the last couple weeks trying to rally support around the administration's agenda. But today, Vance delivered the keynote address at the National Peace Officers Memorial Service at the Capitol. And judging by one moment from the event, things maybe aren't going that great. Take a look.
Violent criminals in prison as opposed to letting them out of jail.
Please clap. A little Jeb Bush moment.
The first time,
of Jeb Bush. That was bad.
the first time our producer watched that clip, she thought the clip had frozen. But
I briefly thought it did too.
The vice president had just frozen. Well, look, we may know why there was that freeze and such a lack of enthusiasm, because maybe this crowd didn't have paid participants like the rally last week. That's right. According to reporting out of Iowa, an ethanol lobbyist with ties to Governor Kim Reynolds allegedly offered people $100 cash to attend a J.D. Vance rally in Des Moines. That's right, Xander. They could not fill the room, so people started paying people to get there. According to the report, attendees were also allegedly offered another $25 for every additional person they recruited to come with them. I just have to say, when you gotta pay people to show up to see the vice president of the United States, you should maybe take that as a signal you're really effing unpopular.
Yeah. They took it as a signal to start like the political version of Amway, it seems, some sort of like pyramid scheme to bring attendance into his different events. That one event he did with Turning Point was so terrible. I'm sure they had that in the back of their mind. I don't know if you saw the photos. It was so bad.
It was in an arena, and it was like a third of the arena, and the rest of it was just empty.
It was like a tenth of the arena. Yeah, if you run
Yeah.
out of an arena, you better be damn sure you're gonna fill an arena. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
you're
they had
either
that
the
in the back of their
Killers
head.
or you're the Rolling Stones or something like that. But JD Vance, none of those things.
No, so they create a multi-level marketing political attendance company apparently. Yeah, good sign that what you're doing isn't popular. It's somehow hard, Miles, to like square these things though, that this is like a formidable political opponent for us all in the midterms, trying to get Congress on our side when there's all these signs all over the place that clearly their popularity is dwindling. How do you square those two things?
I mean, they're flailing. They're flailing, and I think they can't find the through line between
Yes.
Trump's corruption and the suffering of the American people. And there's a reason. You can't get those two things connected in a way that makes you look good. They're
Yeah.
just going to connect in a way that makes you look bad, no matter what. Is the president is so obsessed with vanity projects while we're in a war that's making Americans poorer. Okay, the guy who, I think I mentioned this the other day, I'll never forget that rally in North Carolina in 2020 when he says, if you don't vote for me, you're going to be so goddamn poor.
Yeah.
And really, he should have said, if you vote for me, you'll be so,
gonna be so
poor,
goddamn
because
poor.
that's what's happened. And I think they can't get themselves out of it. It also, look, this is going to be the sandbags tied to the ankles of JD Vance and Marco Rubio when they're running for president. There's no way to run from Donald Trump on this. We are going to stick onto you every single act of corruption. The slush fund, your slush fund too. The ballroom, it's your ballroom too, right? The swimming pool in the Capitol or the painting of the reflecting pool, that belongs to you as well.
Yeah.
These guys can't run from it. And they're having a really hard time, judging by these public events, figuring out how on earth to distance themselves from the crazy.
Yeah, but it is good for the opposition to these guys to note, like, there's no version of being too bold right now. Americans are looking for bold leaders to take these guys on. I guess that's what I was getting at, Miles. Like the tension between these guys clearly being so unpopular, but still like the midterm, having anxiety around the midterms because, are we going to turn out enough people, et cetera. Be more bold, triple down. There's no politician in DC that I'm currently saying, Miles, I'm calling you up, Miles, this guy's got to calm down. He's being way too strong about the impact on the economy or the war or the Epstein files. There's only a handful of folks I think that we see that are acting appropriately, the Chris Murphys and Ro Khannas of the world that are being bold and vocal, the AOCs of the world. And so we just need, I think the American people are looking for a pulse from the opposition so we can glom on and find those fighters that we're looking for, because clearly these guys are flailing, to your point, and the opportunity is now for leaders.
Well, if you need more evidence of it, our next example, Xander, of MAGA losses for the week is one that I was talking about yesterday on Deadline White House on MS Now, which is that the FBI director, Kash Patel, not long ago, went down to Pearl Harbor. He was in Hawaii and he toured the area. And there was something pretty extraordinary about all of this. And it was more than just him dog paddling around in the Pacific, which I don't care about. But this story got weirder and offensive. And I'm going to go to Good Morning America that has the background on this, and then we'll chat about it.
Good morning. FBI Director Kash Patel is battling a new controversy after a visit to one of the most hallowed places in America. The Associated Press reporting that while on an official visit to Hawaii last summer, Patel took a rare VIP snorkeling tour of Pearl Harbor. The Navy arranging for him to swim near the wreckage of the USS Arizona, where 900 sailors and Marines perished in the Japanese bombing in December of 1941. The snorkeling expedition was not on Patel's public schedule, but this morning the Navy confirming that it took place and that Patel's group was briefed not to come in contact with the USS Arizona in any way while they were swimming nearby. In rare instances, the Park Service and Navy have arranged for similar excursions for other VIPs. But this episode highlights growing concerns among critics about whether Patel is using his public office to score personal perks.
Yeah, I mean, this is disgusting, Xander. I mean, yesterday I said on the program, who on earth, first of all, goes swimming through a cemetery? And second of all, that this is another example of Kash Patel treating his job like he's on rich kid spring break, right?
Yeah.
He jets around to go see his girlfriend singing. He gets her FBI security. He goes snorkeling. He binges beers with sports teams. This ain't spring break, man. You're the FBI director. Get in the game.
We literally have influencers. It's just it's a bunch of influencers that we have, like social media tweenage influencers as our secretaries of the most important departments in our federal government. That's who's there.
It is, but you know what? Here's the good news.
Give me the good news, please.
This stuff ain't staying quiet. I mean, these guys, this is their reputation for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
Snorkeling through a cemetery of fallen soldiers. And, binge it. There you go. Yep. that is him forever. That's him forever.
Yeah.
It really did seem like when he took that official photo that he was preparing for it to be mashed up with the snorkeling photo.
How much? I'm not saying Kash Patel. I'm not saying Kash Patel's on Adderall, but how much Adderall would you have to take for your eyes to look like that all the time? So it's not a little. I can't definitively say that's what's going on with him, but
it'd have to be substantial
all the time.
Well, finally tonight, Xander, we got one more MAGA loss of the week, and this one is from Australia. A planned 91-story Trump Tower on the Gold Coast just collapsed a few months after being announced. The project was supposed to become the tallest building in Australia, luxury apartments and hotel and beach club, all of that. Now, the developers are publicly blaming the Trump brand itself. You don't say. Altus Property Group and their chief executive, David Young, said, quote, "Let's just say that with the Iran war and everything else, the Trump brand was increasingly toxic in Australia," unquote. The Trump organization fired back at this, saying the developers simply could not meet basic financial obligations. But Young says the project is continuing with other luxury brands and that this was never about meeting obligations. And honestly, Xander, one detail in there tells the whole story, which is that more than 120,000 people had already signed petitions opposing the tower before construction even began. I don't blame them. They made a great decision not to take a luxury condo and give it one of the most radioactive brands on the planet.
If there's only some way for them to get ahead of this reality, somehow they knew this guy was maybe not going to behave so well in his second administration. Well, after he tried to overthrow the government when leaving his first time through. I don't feel bad for anyone in this story. I'm not surprised that Trump didn't take this as a moment of reflection to question where his brand is today and how he got here, and instead went on the offensive. Seems like the only gear they fucking have. Anytime anyone tries to confront them with reality. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm choosing between brands and I've got like Nike versus Nazi, it's a kind of a no-brainer. I think I'm just
battle for the ages.
Nike. I think I'm just going to go with Nike. Anyway, well, that leads us, Xander. Speaking of little Nazis, that leads us to the weekly Sole-Mate Award. If you don't know what this is, a couple of months ago, it was reported that Donald Trump gives out his favorite pair of black dress shoes to his underlings and to his acolytes. They're his favorite shoes. And what was really gross about this is then a bunch of pictures emerged of Trump in negotiations with foreign leaders where everyone on his team is wearing the same black pair of shoes. And in some cases, people like Marco Rubio were wearing ones that didn't fit because Donald Trump doesn't ask your size beforehand. He just, according to this report, sizes you up, gives you a pair of shoes, and demands that you wear them. And the fact that all of those staff are willing to do so, to me, Xander, symbolized more than anything how much these sycophants are willing to do for their boss, including wearing whatever clothes he tells them to wear. But here's the thing. There's no shortage of supplicants in Washington, D.C., and some of these folks are really hankering for a pair of those shoes. And so we decided to do them a service and every week announce someone that we would award those shoes to. The Donald J. Trump Sole-Mate Award, S-O-L-E. And our first Sole-Mate nominee tonight is White House spokesperson Anna Kelly. Because after Donald Trump floated the idea of making Venezuela the 51st state, including tweeting pictures of it with an American flag pasted over it, Fox's John Roberts gave her multiple opportunities to clarify whether the president was joking, exaggerating, maybe speaking hypothetically, but she refused to do it. Take a look.
To the president this morning, it was just before the Oval Office event, he kind of surprised me a little bit because he said, John, I just want to tell you, I'm very serious about this. So you can talk about this. I'm serious about beginning a process to make Venezuela the 51st state. Now, there's a rich history in this nation of taking territories and absorbing them into the United States. You know, Puerto Rico is one that people talk about. But this would be the first time, to my knowledge, that a sovereign country was ever invited to join the United States of America. How would that work?
Well, John, I won't get ahead of what the president was comfortable sharing with you as far as those plans go. But look, this is a president who is famous for never accepting the status quo. He is always considering a host of options to improve our country. And of course, Venezuela, now led by President Delcy Rodriguez, is working incredibly cooperatively with the United States. So I won't get ahead of any plans that the president may have to that effect. But look, this has been a tremendous success. The United States revitalizing our relationship with Venezuela and in turn improving the economic situation of both countries and our people.
Anna, before you and honestly, I'll literally say whatever he wants me to say. I took this job to say whatever he wants me to say, and whatever country he wants to be a state, I will say we will do it. That's Anna Kelly.
The tellers have a tremendous relationship that's improving with the bank robbers who currently have the gun to their head. They're getting along fabulously now. There were so many triggering things. Miles, that was my triggering moment. There's so many a rich history of taking territory from
the
other
United
people.
States of America has a rich history of territorial aggrandizement.
Let's play a game. What century are we in? We're moving back away from neocolonialism to just regular old style colonialism, it appears.
Retro's back, baby. All right. Well, here, the next Soul-Mate nominee tonight, Xander, maybe you'll like this one even better, is Congressman Jim Jordan, who I know you know, and he spent part of this week carrying water for Donald Trump on rising gas prices after Trump promised Americans $2 gas during the campaign. And when Caitlin Collins pressed him on why Americans are now paying well over $4 a gallon, let's just say that Jim Jordan suddenly became a lot less comfortable owning his own answer. Let's watch.
His promise in 2024 that if he was reelected, gas would be under $2 a gallon because of his policies.
Well, gas prices were coming down until we had to deal with this situation. But, you know, that's life. That's dealing with world and the world we live in. I think the country gets the fundamental fact, and I know I understand this, President Trump makes decisions that are in the best interest of our nation. 250 years, greatest country in history. He makes decisions that are going to help our country and the long-term security and safety of the people he has and I think you want a commander-in-chief like that. You want a commander-in-chief who's willing to do tough things that he knows are good for us, all of your viewers, everyone in this country, and frankly, everyone around the world. It is good if Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon.
But if someone's listening to you and they were paying $2.98 a gallon of gas before the war started, and now they're paying $4.53, I mean, saying that's life might not, make them feel better when they're filling up their car.
Those are your words, not mine. I'm saying.
No, you said that's life just now.
This is the situation.
You just said that. You just said that, Jim.
Oh, that's too good.
Man. That's life.
No, I didn't. Wasn't me.
And honestly, when we talk about gas prices, you're really minimizing the impact of this because it's not just filling up at the pump. This is prices across the board, right? This is once you're impacting oil prices, it's the cost of everything is getting pumped up. I know the Jordan family. I know the Jordan family pretty well. We're all part of the same big kind of elite wrestling family, and I can't say there's a lot of. They're good at wrestling. I'll say that.
Look,
that's what they're best at.
I'm not going to put you. Although I will say one thing. Look, I am on the opposite side of a lot of issues from Jim Jordan these days, at least related to the Trump administration. But I will say that I think he's a true believer. And if I'm going to rank order people who are really disgracing themselves in Washington, I put at the top of the list people who know better and say it anyway. And Jim Jordan, look, I'm not trying to defend the indefensible, but he believes this stuff. He's a guy who's like, he's into it. This is what he believes. There's not too many people that I've encountered in Washington. I'm like, they're actually a diehard. They're totally brainwashed in the MAGA movement. The gross thing is most of them behind the scenes will tell you, I hate the president. He's crazy. I hate all this stuff. And then they go defend it. That's really, those are really the big cowards. For better or for worse, Jim Jordan believes this shit.
What is this anymore though? Because I think I understood what MAGA was at one point to a certain extent, right? It was like it was some mix of reindustrialization and like kind of hurting brown people in various ways and reducing immigration.
That's about right.
What is this in this case? Like MAGA has lost the plot. What's their thing?
Oh yeah, I just mean like I just mean the actual cult. I
think he's just in a cult. I think you're totally right.
For sure.
That's the thing.
I think so I guess the distinction I'm trying to draw is between someone who is legitimately brainwashed into the cult and other people who see what the cult's all about, but they're like, but I think I can gain something by pretending I really agree with everything in the cult. And there are so many of the second type in Washington, which is so infuriating.
100%. There's a third type too, which is they were I guess what I'm pointing out, they were brainwashed into the goals of the cult, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, that since it shifted goes, what the fuck are we doing? We're no longer doing any of the things we set out to do, the radical, terrible things that we set out to do. I'm jumping ship. Jim is like in the cult in the sense that he's just dedicated to dear leader in an undying way.
Totally.
It's pretty incredible.
He is. It echoes a lot of other autocracies we've seen throughout history. And this is actually a fitting point, Xander, to say who our third nominee is, because our third nominee, I think, falls into that second category, and that is Congressman Mike Haradopoulos, because he went on C-SPAN to take calls from the public, which already feels like a unnecessarily risky decision for a MAGA Republican in 2026. But anyway, right out of the gate, an independent caller hit him with what basically turned into a running list of complaints about Trump's presidency. Yet somehow Mike Haradopoulos still found a way to conclude, well, none of it's Donald Trump's fault.
Congressman, I'd like to ask you, what did the president gain from China with Xi Jinping? Did he gain anything? And secondly, when the president came into office, he said he was going to make things raw for the American people. The economy was going to be, gas prices were not going to be above $3. I'm paying more than $5 for a gallon right now. And thirdly, Mr. Congressman, when the president came into office, Americans were respected around the world. I just came from Europe. In Europe, we are disrespected. A guy spat in my face in Luxembourg because of our actions around the world. America is no longer respected. And let me ask you a third question. Why is the president building golden statue of himself and acting like he's Jesus Christ on the world stage, putting up portraits, acting as if though he's Christ?
Okay, DL, jump in. We'll have the congressman respond.
Well, let's just talk about gas prices first. Before this conflict with Iran, as everyone knows, gas prices were coming down. We're producing a heck of a lot more oil than we were in years past. We also know during the Biden years, let's just again put this in perspective. We had the ability to build the Keystone Pipeline. They killed it.
Oh, I love the pivot. Biden.
Oh, Biden.
Guys, we're in the second year of the second Trump administration. Give me a break. You're so obsessed with Donald Trump that you're still saying all the problems are Biden's fault?
First of all, Miles, before we needlessly did the thing we did, things were great, as you remember. What's that defense?
Wait, I like that
before we
defense even better.
recklessly
If they're
did all
like,
the things.
well, hey, before Donald Trump came into office, we were on a pretty good path, but like the American people, they made us do it. They put us in the White House. That's, I think, their next line of attack is they're going to blame all of us.
It's us. It's our fault. It is interesting. Jim Jordan and this guy both kind of winked at this idea that this is popular in some ways. And I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Show me the poll where you see Americans fired up about this conflict and our foreign policy writ large in general.
I haven't seen it. I don't think it exists. Xander, before we give out the award today, let me say something to folks, because I think there's going to be a more effective way to give out this award every Friday. And we're going to workshop this, because here's the thing. We've been sending shoes to people. That's right. We've been sending pairs of undersized or oversized floor-time shoes to the winners. But now we've had multiple of them send the shoes back. Send the shoes back. What? So this has become like Scott Jennings, one of the members of Congress we sent to. No note, no message. We just find out that our account has been credited and refunded because they've sent the shoes back, which is gratifying in the sense that we know that we've received them. But we also, as a nonprofit, don't want to be wasting money on these shoes. And so I have an idea, and maybe it'll work this week, maybe it won't. But my idea is every week we award this. The most effective thing you could do is go to these people's social media accounts and just share with them the photograph that we issue that shows that they're the award winner of the week, and go in their comments and just flood their comments and congratulate them on winning the Donald J. Trump Soul-Mate Award. So I know we don't have it today. We do have the image of the winner, but maybe in future weeks, we'll take that image and make sure it's got the description. Winner this week, Soul-Mate Award. It's got all the information, and you can just go post it on their social. So we'll do that in future weeks. I think that will get their attention even more than these shoes, because I got a feeling that their handlers are getting the shoes first and they're just sending them right back. So that's our plan. If y'all are down with it, we'll start next week by just covering their comments on social media with these pictures, awarding them. So without further ado, Xander, this week, drum roll, the winner of the Donald J. Trump Soul-Mate Award is Anna.
Oh,
congratulations, Anna, White House spokesperson, willing to say anything that the President of the United States wants her to say. Anna, you have measurably contributed towards the effort to take America closer to fascism. Thank you for your service and your willingness to do whatever the president wants. And look, you fit right there in that little Florsheim shoe. We hope you're proud of yourself.
Trailblazer, really? Is this our first female Soul-Mate Award winner?
No, I don't think it is. Remember. I think we've... Is it? Oh, no, our producer says yes, it is.
Yeah, Trailblazer. Congratulations.
Trailblazer going to look great in those black Oxfords. But yeah, and feel free, folks, to go to Anna Kelly's socials and let her know she won the Defiance.org Donald J. Trump Soul-Mate Award of the week. Feel free to screenshot that if you want to.
Miles, is there any way for us to get these people the shoes, thinking they're receiving them from Trump, like buying the most absurd size, but trying to get them to squeeze into like a size 5 shoe by presenting it as if it came from the administration? Is that possible?
That would be next level. We'll work on it. We'll workshop it.
Okay.
Before we jump for the day, Xander, we have a last minute guest who's going to join us. Do you want to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, this is my personal hero, Miss Latosha Brown of Black Voters Matter, the Queen of Alabama. I really want to get into like a full WWF presentation. Yes! If I had an air horn, I would blow it. Latosha Brown, welcome to the program. What's going on? She's driving right now. She's on the road. Latosha, you hear us?
We got you in the car.
I'm going to Jacksonville. You're going fast.
Latosha, you with us? I don't think she can hear us. Oh, we'll have to come back at her.
Wait,
I'll text her.
So fun.
I can call her. This is honestly one of the greatest things that happened to me. One of the greatest things that happened to me over the last 6 years. When I started Defeat by Tweet, because of everyone throwing down their pennies every time Trump tweeted, I became the largest funder of Black organizing in the country. PAC money, anyways. And I got to develop some really special relationships with people. And I don't think anyone was more special than Latosha Brown. She brings such an incredible sense of joy to this existential fight. She's always, I used to call her my cup of coffee if I talk with her in the morning, because she has this undying optimism, and she really, really harkens back to like this MLK spirit of tying what we're doing. And we heard it from Pastor Mike, who's another dear friend, tying what we're doing back to having be about love of our friends and our neighbors. I mean, I'm calling her. Latosha, you're on the air with us. We just went to you. Now you're on the air on my speakerphone. Yeah. We'll add you back.
Oh, we can't can't hear her on this end, Xander.
Oh, you can't. Stay in the green room. Is she still in the green room, Mercedes? Yeah, stay where you are. Just know that we're chatting with you. So make sure to listen in on the StreamYard link, okay?
Okay, so you don't need me to be on screen?
We want you on screen. Use that link we sent you.
Okay, let me do that.
All right.
Well, look, guys, see, we're just making it work. We're just making it work. It's Friday. So, we'll see. But if it doesn't,
yeah,
we're
heading into the weekend, gang. I got some water. I didn't have a drink, but
there you go. I don't think it's gonna work, Xander. I don't think it's gonna work. But look, let me say this before we wrap. Xander, let's talk about what she was plugging, because Latosha Brown is out there promoting a national day of action for voting rights tomorrow. And that's an effort called All Roads Lead to the South. And I think we can put the domain up there in the scroll. But we had Pastor Mike on talking about this the other day. There is this effort, All Roads Lead to the South. Maybe we have Latosha here. We'll see.
There we go.
Hey!
It works.
What's up, Latosha Brown?
Latosha, the fun part was watching you drive. I was like, oh, we're going on a car.
Were y'all watching me drive?
Latasha's getting more into content creation. She's doing that kick thing where you just stream for 24 hours a day.
Obviously, I did not know it. I'm glad I didn't do anything bad to anybody. I'm glad I didn't have any road rage.
We got your routing number and account number, and thank you. Latosha, can I ask you, we're towards the end of the program, but we wanted to make sure to plug this National Day of Action on Voting Rights. Tell us about All Roads Lead to the South, and what can people do?
Well, they can actually come and support us. So let me say this. If you have been watching, people who have been watching what has been happening in the South around voting rights, the Voting Rights Act essentially has been gutted. Section 5, Section 2, we're seeing a full onslaught and attack on voting rights throughout these southern states. And, it's Tennessee and Louisiana and Alabama, and the chaos is the point. This is clearly a concerted, organized, coordinated effort to really be able to split, to go and disenfranchise Black voters in these states.
You frozen? I'm frozen. She's frozen.
She's frozen. Well, let me just say this. Check out, if you're watching on video, check out the domain, blackpowerwarroom.com/day of action. Go check it out. Latosha Brown is the real deal. She is amazing. This effort is important. It's critical at this moment. I know a lot of our members and listeners have been, in a bummer place this week, as it's one hit after another when it comes to voting rights and gerrymandering. But this ain't the end, folks. This ain't the end. This is the beginning of a big, big fight. And Latosha and team have been pressing hard on that front, Xander.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that's been disappointing but revealing is the speed at which states, once they knew they could gerrymander, once they knew they could reduce the power of Black and brown voters in their states, the speed in which some of these states organized to do exactly that. It was another moment to reflect on the fact that we haven't made as much cultural progress across those issues as we probably would have liked to believe.
Yeah, that's right. Well, oh, there we go. She's back.
I'm back.
She's back again.
I'm back. So I'll get right to it. The bottom line is the level and the intensity of which the assault is happening. We're not seeing the level of response to it. People are kind of, unfortunately, in this country, people are kind of used to, oh, that's a disenfranchisement. It's almost in some ways voter suppression has become a norm, and that's why what we have been screaming and talking about over the last decade, that this isn't in isolation. This is part of a larger, more organized, coordinated strategy, and we're actually seeing itself play itself out now. And so, one of the interesting things that what really was the impetus of this is last week, the state of Alabama. In Alabama, a quarter of the state are African Americans. And so the state for years only had one seat that would be competitive for an African American to get representation in that seat. And so there was a case named the Milliken case that literally did the math that is a quarter of the state. Why is there no growth? Why is there no growth around representation? So as a result, there was a second district that was drawn. The Supreme Court, this same conservative, racist Supreme Court, actually, when the racists call somebody a racist, it got to be pretty bad. They basically told the state of Alabama that this is egregious. You're going to have to allow this second district to be drawn. The way you're drawing the maps is you're literally splitting up black constituents, black voters in such a way that they cannot have a competitive opportunity to getting representation for themselves. And so that particular case, the Supreme Court ruled and said, listen, y'all got to redraw the maps. The state of Alabama was so racist and egregious that it refused to do so. And so a special master had to be called in. This was just 2 years ago, called in and drew the district. And so there's 2 districts now of the 7 districts that are in the state. And the interesting thing about it is just last week, the Republican Attorney General literally made an agreement to not redraw the district
it's suppression right here. This is more of the suppression.
They've hacked our
the
networks.
Trump admin behind this, not wanting us to platform a powerful black female leader like Latosha Brown. Gang, go to allroadsleadtothe.south. Is it .org or .com? I just had the link. allroadsleadtothe.south.com or blackpowerwarroom.com. Day of action to get your tasks for supporting this important effort. We should all be involved to the extent we can. One of the things we talked about oftentimes, in social justice, Miles, is so much of our system was meant to institutionally oppress black and brown individuals, but they're building in that effort, they're building the tools in the toolkit to oppress others and broader groups when they will. In our criminal justice system, even though a lot of it was built on the backs of this idea of, how do you get free labor after slavery? How do you disenfranchise black voters so they don't have power? Is happily consuming people from across the spectrum because it is such an egregious and challenging system. And now we see our immigration system copying what we've learned in mass incarceration, violating rights and swooping up individuals everywhere. And so this is a fight in allyship with our black and brown neighbors in the South. It is one that really ultimately impacts us all.
It absolutely is, my friend. Well, before we sign off for the day, Xander, one thing I want to flag for folks, they should go check that out. They should be a part of the fight and support it. One little fun thing, which is that we've had a lot of Defiance.org members say they want stickers. And we got our first ones finally up there.
We got stickers.
A big thanks to Defiance.org founding member Chris Palomino and Igor Issa for making sure we at least got our first sticker out there. You can go check out their great design and buy a Defy Trump Together sticker. The proceeds go towards the fight. 100% of the proceeds of every single product we sell on our store, defiance.org/swag, goes into the fight that we spend on pro-democracy causes and groups and actions to constrain Trump's abuses of power. Everything, the hats, the shirts, Doesn't go to me, doesn't go to Xander, goes towards the cause. So go check that out. And a big thank you to Chris and to our friend Igor Issa. So thank you so much. And we'll get more stickers out there too. But I know this has been a long time coming. We got stickers. We got more stickers coming. We've got some of the best stickers anyone's ever seen. Look, I know stickers. These are the best.
Great stickers.
Go check that out, friends.
It's incredible what's hard for us. We counter program the State of the Union check, national network of prosecutors, keeping ICE agents in check. Got that. Stickers, though. It's like a 3 month.
It's been on my to-do list. If people could see what my to-do list looks like, on Sundays, I do 2 hours of calendaring to calendar every 15-minute increment of my entire week. And I swear to y'all, stickers was on there. It's just taking a while to get
held
down.
a block for stickers.
It's taking a while to get down to
times.
stickers. But we're working our butts off here at Defiance.org. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for growing the Defiance. If you could do one thing, it's get another person to join Defiance.org. We don't care if they join as $1 a month person or $100 a month. Get them into the fight, because we can take more and more serious action. And next week you'll see, I think, 2 or 3 more reasons why this fight is working, because we've got some big announcements. I think we have one on Tuesday that's going to go out about the fight against federal overreach. I think we've got Monday. I think Tuesday, we're going to be talking about more things related to GTFO ICE, our rapid response network for holding ICE accountable. Wednesday, we've got one of our coolest announcements this year, period, full stop. One of the coolest announcements of 2026 that Defiance.org is going to make is going to be on Wednesday, and hell knows what's going to happen Thursday and Friday next week, Xander.
we can't even get to those yet. If you're wondering why I looked like Miles locked me in a closet with terrible lighting that's driving Mercedes crazy, undoubtedly, it's because I'm in New York City working on the big project on Wednesday. We're so
no one's stressed about you. No one's stressed about your lighting. No one's sitting there at home being like, I wish I could see Xander's pores today. And if that person is out there, we expect you to double your contribution to Defiance.org, because we're giving you such great Xander content.
Lighting.
Look, in the meantime, folks, thank you for a great week. We're doing a lot of good as a club. We're doing a lot of good. And as we always say, friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. We'll see you Monday right here live at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much.
See ya.